Is religious trauma? Religious trauma can be defined as the physical, emotional, or psychological response to religious beliefs, practices, or structures that overwhelm an individual's ability to cope and to return to a sense of safety. So it's not about the thing that happened. It's not that everybody learning about hell, that itself is traumatic. It's the individual's physiological response to an event, an overwhelming event, usually. So again, it's not the event itself, it's the physiological response to an event. And then religious trauma is, specifically a religious event. And then adverse religious experiences are any experience of a religious belief, practice, or structure that undermines an individual's sense of safety or autonomy and or negatively impacts their physical, social, emotional, relational, or psychological well-being. So again, this is individual. The same thing might affect all sorts of people, all sorts of different ways. But some of them will be adverse experiences and some will produce trauma. So I'd love for you to just take a moment to think about, and you can pause this video if it makes sense, to think about how religious or cultural trauma has impacted you in your experience. Have you experienced adverse religious experience or adverse religious experiences or adverse cultural experiences? Because this effect isn't just limited to religious institutions. It can also, we can get trauma from how we're in our family, from our school, from just the general culture. So this might apply to you even if you didn't experience specifically religious trauma. And then I'd love to talk a little bit about just the intentions for this conversation. So I'm talking about religious trauma here because I want to help normalize experiences of religious trauma and adverse religious experiences. You're not alone. A lot of people have experienced this. A lot of people, and religion has a very overwhelmingly positive public image, especially in the US, I would say. Maybe it's different other places, but it can feel kind of alienating to be the one that speaks up of, hey, this actually impacted me in this way, or even know that about yourself. Oftentimes we're kind of gaslit out of these experiences, or out of the trauma of these experiences. Gaslit meaning that if you say, hey, this was traumatic for me, or if that's your experience, maybe it'd be met with, well, that's God testing you, or if you need to just surrender more into the love of God, or no, that didn't impact me that way, so so you're making that up. So oftentimes, so in these conversations, I really just want to normalize that religious trauma does happen, and that it's safe to speak up about it. It's safe to find help, that there is help available. And so to help create a community as well of people to connect with one another and to help provide resources. And I also want to help, people who are here, people who are listening, who have experienced religious trauma or adverse religious experiences, contextualize and understand their experiences, as well as, in the coaching that I do is kind of the next step in the group, weekly support group. We really can't get too deep, but we can help contextualize and understand and help people understand that they're not alone, and that what they've experienced is real and valid. And so that's the first step. And then in coaching, that's when more of the healing can happen. That's when we can dream into the vision of how you want your life to look like, how you can integrate spirituality back into your life if you want, or integrate it with your new, really reclaimed sexuality and intimacy. So it's kind of the next step. Also interested in help here to help people release shame and reclaim their pleasure and autonomy. That's my number one goal. And as well as to provide a community and support for people to integrate their spiritual and their sexual lives. So that's really the intentions for having these conversations, for presenting this to you, and for doing the work that we do.